Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. Actually, welcome back to everybody who hasn't been here. I hope you've had a brilliant morning so far. It's been so lovely to see you. And so welcome back to our first assembly with everybody all back together. I know there are some children who are still at home for a little bit longer. But hopefully that won't be for too long now. So you might still be watching this at home. And if you are, hi. But really welcome back to everybody, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Now, as you will know, if you've been watching the assemblies on Google Classroom, you'll know that our core value this term is fairness, and I found this awesome poster online. It's made in America, so I've just emailed them to see if they sell them over here, but I thought this was so cool, and you can't see it very well, but it just talks a little bit. It says, a person of character is fair and just and impartial, and listens and is open to differing viewpoints. And fairness is about being fair and just, treating people equally, making decisions without favoritism or prejudice, being open-minded, hear people out, listen to them, consider what they have to say before making a decision, get the facts, only take your fair share. So I love that little bit about listening and making decisions without prejudice, listen to different sides of the story, and that's exactly what we talk about. And treating people equally, do you remember that means treating people with equity, means giving them what they need to succeed. So sometimes treating people equally isn't giving everyone all the same, but it might be giving somebody what they need to succeed. And I'm going to read you a story today in our assembly. I've just been looking at this story. It's one of my favourite stories. I think I've read it in assembly once or twice before. And it's a brilliant story which I came across when I was a teacher, and I think this story, you can see all of our core values in this story, but especially fairness, and treating people equally and with equity and being kind and listening. It's all our core values. So this story is called The Boy Who Grew Flowers, and I've managed to get pictures for every page, so I don't have to hold the book up and worry about you not being able to see it. I've got pictures for every page. I'm just going to read it to you now. The Boy Who Grew Flowers. Rink Bowwagon was a boy from deep in the country. He lived out past where the blacktop road became a dirt road, and the dirt road petered out into a little footpath. The path wound through ancient trees of a wild forest, hopped Black Bear Creek, and headed all the way up Lonesome Mountain. And there you can see his front door. That's the Bowwagon's front door. The Bowwagons were the only folks who lived on Lonesome Mountain. The townspeople argued as to whether it's because they were such strange folk that they lived there, or whether it's because they lived there that they were such strange folk. However, everyone agreed that the Bowwagon clan was a hotbed of strange and exotic talents. Rink's Uncle Dud liked to train rattlesnakes, and his brothers and cousins were all shapeshifters. I think that might be Uncle Dud there. And you can see the shape-shifting here. But Rink himself had the most special talent of all. During the full moon, he sprouted flowers all over his body. It was a beautiful sight, and they were the prettiest, sweet-smelling and longest-lasting blossoms you ever saw. You can just see the picture of his arm down here with the flowers coming out of it, and that must be his head, look. And they said they were the prettiest, and I said that right. Some folks might say stay home sick in bed if they happen to sprout, but not Rink. Every morning following a full moon, his mama would gently clip the flowers from her boy, and off he would go to school. Now, Rink liked school. At least he liked the thinking and the reading part. But he was shy and quiet and different from the other children. So the teacher gave him a seat at the back of the room and didn't bother with him. As for the children, they'd all heard rumours about Rink's strange relatives, so they stayed at a safe distance from him. Then Angelina Quiz came along. a girl whose family was in the ballroom dancing business and had just moved from Tuscaloosa. She was what some would call a plain girl. She had an easy manner, a luminous smile, and her right leg was shorter than her left by half an inch. She always wore a flower behind her right ear. Rink liked her straight away. So did everyone else. Angelina was always surrounded by friends. Rink observed her from a distance. She is forthright and honest, but always kind, he thought. He also admired the flowers she wore behind her ear, a different one every day, and all of them as lovely as she. As for Angelina Quiz, she soon wondered about the quiet boy who sat alone at the back of the class. So she asked the other children about him. His Uncle Dud's got a pet rattlesnake called Fat Lucy, and she sleeps at the end of his bed, hissed Fuster Shrimp. And his mother uses a bowling bag for a purse, giggled Shirley Ann Smith. And his granny was raised by wolves, snickered Gertrude Prugg. Angelina didn't laugh. Why won't anyone talk to him? She asked. The others fell silent. The question rattled in their minds. One afternoon, the teacher announced that a school dance would be held that Saturday night at the church hall. Several of her classmates asked Angelina to go, but she smiled bravely and shook her head. I wouldn't be much of a dancing partner, she laughed. Can you remember why? Because she's got that thing where she's got one leg shorter than the other. Rink was struck by the wistful note he heard in her voice. She comes from a dancing family, he thought. I bet she loves music. I bet she'd really like to go to that dance. The minute the teacher's back was turned, Rink slipped out of the door. No one noticed except Angelina, who glanced back at his empty chair every now and then. She marvelled at how his absence could take the shine off at such a pretty, sunny day. When Rink reached his home high on Lonesome Mountain, he went straight to his Uncle Dud's room. He rummaged under the bed until he came up with several feet of Fat Lucy's shucked-off skin. Next, he dug through his mamma's bowling bag until he found a needle and a spool of silk thread. Then in the tumble-down shed off the kitchen, he turned up an old leather mule saddle. Rink sat down and cleared his mind. He thought intently about Angelina's feet. He pictured their shape and size and the inch of space between her right foot and the floor. Then he cut and he stitched and he glued. He worked right through from Thursday afternoon until Saturday morning. When Rink was finally done, there on the table stood the loveliest pair of snakeskin slippers that have ever been seen this side of Black Bear Creek. The sole of the right slipper was 1 inch thicker than the left, so that Angelina could stand true and straight and tall. Rink imagined her dancing. He thought that so long, he thought that thought so long, and the feeling deep inside him was so pleasant that even though the full moon had not yet risen, he sprouted a bunch of wild pink roses from the top of his head. That afternoon, Rink followed the footpath down through the forest, across Black Bear Creek, along the dirt road, onto the blacktop road and up the hill. Halfway up the hill, he opened a small gate and walked up the little path that led right to Angelina's front porch. Angelina was helping her mama sew up a fancy new tango dress. The whole house was quiet, and every little snip of the scissors made a sad little tweak in her heart. She thought about Rink and how she'd missed him at school all day that Friday. When Angelina heard a knock at the door, her heart flipped. There stood Rink with a bunch of wild pink roses in his left hand and a pair of snakeskin slippers in his right. These are for you, and he offered the slippers to her. If you wear these, you'll dance just fine. Angelina wriggled her bare toes into the slippers then and there. For the first time in her life, she felt herself stand up straight. She took one step, then another, then she did a little practice dance step. Angelina looked at Rink with delight. Will you be my dancing partner? She asked. I don't know how to do that kind of dancing, said Rink shyly. I'll teach you, cried Angelina. I've watched my family so many times, I know all of the steps by heart. She took his hand and they danced together down the path. After the dance, Rink walked Angelina home. They stopped on the way and sat under an old tree. Angelina told Rink about her family and he told her about his. Then, with a pounding heart, he revealed to her that he sprouted flowers all over himself during the full moon. Angelina smiled with delight. Then she bent down and showed Rink where the flower she wore grew right out from behind her ear. From that day on, Angelina Quiz and Rink Bowwagon were fast friends. Angelina wore her snakeskin slippers every day, and when the slippers wore out, Rink made her another pair. He has been making all of her shoes for 25 years now. The two of them have their own house up on Lonesome Mountain, only these days it's called Sweet Blossom Hill. Gardening is how Angelina and Rink earn their living. Actually, it's a family business. You see, every one of their 7 children was born with a green thumb. Isn't that a fabulous story? And what I really like about it is the author has put the dedication here, which says, for my brother Wally, because you were there to show that what makes us different is what makes us wonderful. And she has a brother who has autism, and she wrote that because Rink reminded her of Rink. So I think that's lovely. And it's such a fabulous story. Just have a little think back about where you could see our core values in the story and how everybody's so different and special. Life would be so dull if we were all the same. But just remember to treat each other with kindness. And that's all you need to do. If everybody treats each other kindly, the way Angelina treated Rink and the way Rink treated Angelina, we'll just be sorted. So have a lovely day. Enjoy your first day back, everybody, those of you who've just come back. And I will see you all later.